What is up, YouTube? Dr. Fish King 9 here, and today I'm going to be doing a deck profile here on the dueling networks. And dueling network is a place where if you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Online with people using the type of deck that you want to run or you already have and do run, this is the place to go. I'm doing a new series on here called the anti-meta decking. I call it the anti-meta decking because the types of cards I'm using and the deck I run is some of the most anti-meta stuff you'll ever see. Case in point, this deck right here. This is my Elemental Hero deck. This is my favorite deck to run. I run this deck more than usual. In fact, on me right now, I have the deck right next to me, just about completed. Only missing about one or two other cards. A couple harder to find ones like higher up in price that I don't really want to spend the money for just yet. So I'm going to go over the deck, talk about the upsides and the downsides to it against regular meta decks, and that'll be it. And let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more of these in the future. So first off, we've got Avion, Elemental Hero Avion, and Burstinatrix, Clayman, Neos, Sparkman, Blade Edge, and now Blade Edge is the first of very few to have an effect, and he does piercing damage, which means if your monster's in defense mode, you can still take damage. Bubbleman, if he is the only card in your hand, you can special summon him, and if he's the only card on your field, if you have no other cards on your field and you have no cards in your hand, you get to draw 2 cards. Necroshade, when this card is in the graveyard, once per duel, you can normal summon an Elemental Hero monster level 5 or higher without sacrificing. You have the new Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. If this card is sent to the graveyard by any means from the field, you can add an Elemental 1 hero monster from your deck to the hand, except for Shadow Mist. You can only use its effect once per turn. You have Wild Heart, where he can't be affected by trap cards, which is really good in the meta series with most people running cards like Dimensional Prison, Mirror Force, Bottomless Trap Hole, Compulsory Evacuation Device, stuff like that. And then we have Rottweiler, which when this card is destroyed by battle, you can bring back, you can add an Elemental Hero and a Polymerization in your graveyard to your hand. Then you have Bubble Blaster. Now, you don't need to run a Bubble Blaster. I choose to run Bubble Blaster just because of how weak Bubbleman is, with only 800 attack and 1200 defense. Plus I only run 1 Bubbleman. Having the Bubble Blaster makes it a lot easier to keep Bubbleman on the field longer to use the effects of like Fusion Substitute or Polymerization or Fusion Gauge. So it opens the floodgates more to use Bubbleman more effectively and the cards you need to use him for. We have Emergency Call, add an Elemental Hero card monster from your deck to your hand. Fusion Gate, pretty self-explanatory with this one. You can Fusion Summon with using the Fusion materials without using Polymerization, and they are banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. Fusion Recovery, add a Polymerization and a Fusion material monster that was used for a Fusion Summon in your graveyard, and they get to be sent to your hand. Then I have 2 Fusion Sages to add Polymerization to the deck to the hand. Fusion Substitute, another new card in the series. It's always treated as Polymerization, so you can top deck, so you can add it to your hand from Fusion Sage. Plus, you can Fusion Summon monsters using monsters you control as the Fusion materials. And when this card's in the graveyard, and a Fusion monster, you can banish this card and then add the Fusion monster from your graveyard and return to the extra deck and draw a card. Now, it doesn't have to be say you've used Avion and Burstinatrix to summon Flame Wingman, and he's in the graveyard, but you also have Necroid Shaman in the graveyard. You can target Necroid Shaman even if you used Polymerization for it. Alright. And then you have Miracle Fusion, and you can use Fusion Elemental Heroes using you banish them by using Elemental Heroes on the field and in the graveyard. Then you've got Mystical Space Typhoon, destroy a spell and trap card. on the field. I run 3. Oversoul, it's like you can add you can bring back one elemental hero normal monster, which is any of these cards and none of these, or the fusion monsters, because they all have effects. Then we've got the new parallel world fusion, and you can fusion summon an elemental hero fusion monster from your extra deck by shuffling your banished fusion materials. So say you've both banished Sparkman and Necroshade, and you use Parallel World Fusion. Those two get shuffled into the deck, and you can and Dark Bright comes to your side of the field. Polymerization, self-explanatory. Fusion summon using cards from your fusion materials listed using your hand or field, or your side of the field. The new unbanished Raigeki, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Skyscraper, when an elemental hero attacks and has less attack than the target, it gains 1,000 attack during damage calculation. Soul Charge, recently set to limited, and by giving up 1,000 life points per monster you choose to bring, you can bring back monsters by giving up 1,000 for each monster you bring back, but you can't conduct your battle phase. I have 2 supply squads, and if a monster is destroyed by any means, card effect or battle, I can draw a card. So if fusion summoning works too with supply squad, I polymerization Necroshade from the field, or Blade Edge from my hand and Sparkman from the field. Supply squad activates, and they chain, so I can draw 2 cards instead of 1 if they're both out there. Bottomless Trap Hole. I can destroy and banish all monsters summoned that turn with 1,500 or more attack. Call up the Haunted, bring back a monster in attack mode that turn, and then I can switch it to defense or attack later on. Compulsory Evacuation Device, target a monster on the field and return it to the hand. Dimensional Prism, banish a monster that attacks. Hero Signal, if a monster I control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard battle, of course, I can special summon an elemental hero, level 4 or lower, from my hand or deck. And Mirror Force, when an opponent's monster attacks, destroy all spell and trap, destroy all attack position monsters on your opponent's side of the field. I have sided a diffusion, which allows, which puts the fusion monster in the extra deck, and I can then the 2 fusion monsters and the 2 materials used for it are added to the field from the graveyard. Now I have it side decked because of the 2 miracle fusions I run, plus the parallel world fusion and the fusion gate. There's only 3 chances of the card being in the graveyard through fusion, so I have 1 side deck just in case I need to use it. And then for the extra deck, I have Dark Bright, where he does piercing damage, and it gets changed to defense afterwards. And if he's destroyed, I can choose 1 monster on the opponent's side of the field, and it's destroyed. Electrum is probably one of the greatest elemental heroes on here. He's used by fusing Avion, Persinistrix Clayman, and Bubble Man. And he is Wind, Fire, Earth, and Water and Light type, because he's normally Light type. It gains the attributes of the 4 monsters used to summon him. And when this card and all banished cards get shuffled back into the deck, which works really well if you Miracle Fusion for him. So then, and then also he gains 300 attack for each monster that your opponent controls that shares any of his 5 attributes, making him really good. Flame Wingman is the iconic elemental hero that everyone thinks of pre-season 3. Or preseason 3, when Jaden brought Neos into the thing. Flame Wingman is fused with Avion and Persinistrix, and when a monster is destroyed, it takes damage equal to the end of it. And this concludes part 1. I'll be back later on for part 2.